So our daughter's name is Juniper, and it's been 6 days since I gave birth to her, and we're recording this so it's fresh in our minds, but things did not go according to plan. I'll try and get through this in the best way possible, and I definitely will cry, and that's fine. I guess we should walk through like our original birth plan. We worked with our doula, Natalie, who was an amazing friend, yoga teacher, and we prepped for the last like 6 months plus with her. And we had some prenatal sessions, which were so great. We did a hypnobirthing course. What else did we do? We read some books.
Watched some gory videos.
Oh yeah, I made him watch a lot of birth videos. I really wanted to stay on course and manifest my dream birth, which I do feel like I had a lot of it, because I did reach, I guess, full dilation, and I pushed for 4 hours without being medicated. So that part I'm like so proud of, and we'll get into that in a second. But Act 2, as I like to call it, went askew. That rhymed. I had gone 6 days past my due date. I was due April 3rd, and Juniper was born on April 9th at 5:37 a.m. I went in for a membrane sweep on April 8th, I think. Yeah. Okay, so that morning I woke up, I had a membrane sweep scheduled, Colin.
In the morning, is that like 8? It's very early.
Yeah, like 8:30 a.m. Colin had some meetings, but my mom has been in town, thank God. So she helped me get ready for my membrane sweep, which I was like definitely nervous about. I was nervous about the pain and just like all cervical checks and things. It was just not something I was a fan of. I'm not a fan of hospitals. But I made breakfast, I had steel cut oats, I headed to the hospital, and we did a membrane sweep, and it was with a provider that I knew that, although I didn't want to do this, she was like the best capable, and it would be the least painful. And so we did the membrane sweep. Before this, I was like 1.5 centimeters dilated, 25% effaced, and I had kind of been stuck like that for the 2 weeks prior. I was doing everything to induce labor.
Everything.
The mile circuit, which was like 180 minutes if you do both sides at night. I was eating dates, red raspberry leaf tea.
Primrose.
Oh yeah, we were doing primrose vaginally. Doing curb walking, which I think really helped.
Oh, that actually did really help.
Yeah.
I think because you did it, you did it, that's the only time you did it, was the time that...
The day before I went into labor. We were going on walks because we have a giant dog named Spud who we were walking, but I did like an actual like long stretch of curb walking, which is honestly like pretty hard work.
There's also not many curbs here.
Yeah, there's not. We're sidewalks. But we found some, so we did that. And that I think helped. And then I was still going to hot yoga 5 to 6 times a week. Like I was beyond active, like trying to do everything I could to make sure that our baby was in the best position possible. She was head down from like 20 weeks on. We just only had like 2 ultrasounds, so we didn't really know her positioning. We had found out that she was OP, sunny side up, basically like when your baby is head down, but like eyes are forward, which babies come out facing down. We found that out like maybe 4 days before the membrane sweep. We did an ultrasound because they required one at 41 weeks because I had gone past my due date, and that's when we saw her look like little aliens.
That was a weird one.
Actually looked really weird. But we were still trying to do everything to like turn around this baby. So anyway, I go in for the membrane sweep. The membrane sweep is super successful. I go to about from 1.5 centimeters to now 4 centimeters, and from 25% effaced to 75% effaced. So it was very successful. It honestly like was not as bad as I thought pain level wise. Like it's pretty intense, but it's over in a matter of seconds. So suffered through that. My mom really helped me just be there for moral support. And then I came home and you were done with your meetings, and we told the good news of like the progress we'd made, and it was time to walk our dog, same as we do like every day. And so we took our dog for a walk.
We ended up meeting a friend, and we got there. I heard some like grunting, like crashing through bushes, and next thing you know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the scene from Jurassic Park where like the raptor's head, like here, I'm off screen, like it just like pops into the guy, and then he looks and he goes like, clever girl, Anyway, so there's the crashing, and then literally a moose's head. I'm not even kidding you.
Like a huge moose, like a giant bull moose
comes crashing in, and like not even like 3 feet away from me, like there's the moose face. And then the dogs are coming in to kind of like protect us and like barking at the moose.
Yeah, they're not scared of the moose.
No.
Like instead of running away, they're like charging the moose together.
Our dog was kind of behind it, and it did like a back kick, and then like our dog's like, it was literally about an inch away from his head and just like went like that. And then so we all start running.
And missed it, thank God, but like...
Yeah, missed it. Sorry, an inch away from his face.
It was so scary.
We're trying to get the dogs, but they're obviously like, they're not listening to us because there's a giant moose that they're both barking at.
Eventually you guys got the dogs like wrangled in and we got them on a leash, and like I wasn't so pregnant again, so like not very mobile. I like can't get my words out and like so shocked and horror that we're gonna like lose our dog to this moose, and like I literally trip like knees, hands like into the dirt, like face first, trying to like get up and like hope that my dog's gonna be okay. We ended up walking the dog still, got them on leash because we all just needed to calm down because it was like such a high adrenaline.
Well, that's when we all looked at, like, we were walking, and then we like looked and like why, you're like, your pants are really, like, what happened? And you're like,
like
and you're like, I fell, and like all of us were just like, oh.
Yeah, I have like
and no one saw I want to be clear, no one saw her fall.
So we end up taking a walk for like a mile, and we're like calming down, just talking about how crazy it was. And then we go home, and like it's a normal work day, and so Colin goes back upstairs to work. We both work from home. I like warm up some leftovers, and I'm like starting to feel like really weird, and I think I go to the bathroom and part of my mucus plug comes out. It was like in chunks. I know that sounds really gross, but it was just like not the full thing. And so we texted Natalie, our doula, and we're saying like, our mucus plug just came out. Like, I feel weird, but like I wasn't feeling any surges. Right as I said that, all of a sudden surges started happening like pretty intensely. I think they were happening like every 5 minutes, and it wasn't just like one and then I get a break and then like it goes on and on. It was like 1 to 3 back to back, and then I would get a really, really quick break. And so Colin stopped working. I remember you were on like one final call, and I was like, you better fucking stop working right now.
Yeah, no, it was fine. Left that meeting pretty abruptly, but there was pretty intense surges pretty quickly.
Try and like pull on all the tools that we had learned, because we had prepped for this, like we felt so prepared, but it was kind of like, what, like, okay, it's starting, like what do we start with first?
You were down in this very room. You were down here for a little bit, and then I texted Natalie, and then you wanted to migrate upstairs to our bedroom where like we have a connecting bathroom. We got you upstairs, and then you were kind of on the bed for a while.
I think we're still around like 1 o'clock at this time. And like Natalie was teaching yoga later that night, and I was signed up for her class, so we obviously like both canceled that. And she had said like she is in town, like she can swing by and just kind of check out how things are going, and if she thinks that they're like progressing, she'll just stay. But I think she told you like to take me for a walk.
Yeah, like, you are out of your mind. Like, I'm like, I can barely get her out of bed.
Even to get me upstairs was like, how quick can I make it from downstairs to upstairs before I'm like, just like down on the floor, like going through these surges. Using like pillows. I had my dog Spud, who was very tuned in and very concerned. He would come in like with my feed and just like sit on the bed with me. We were getting through them pretty well on our own. I felt like Colin was doing counter pressure, which was really helpful. We tried the TENS machine, and like, it was just too complicated for me. Like, I felt like it just like wasn't what I needed. And so I like used my hypnobirthing breath techniques, and like we had our playlist that I like slaved away on for months. I had like 7 hours of music of like,
solid playlist.
Yeah, it's a good playlist. It was like kind of like spiritual music, like that you would hear in like a vinyasa class, but then also like some like lumineers and some like acoustic stuff. I was like very attached to this playlist, so I felt like we had the playlist going, we had the essential oils going. I had my birth comb, which was really, really helpful, that I would just like squeeze, and like I started like counting how many breaths would a surge last, because I realized that I wasn't gonna get like a surge and then a break and a surge and a break. So I was like, okay, what can I like focus on and control? And it was like how many breaths. It was about 20 breaths to get through to the other side where I knew there would be a break. And sometimes that included a few surges back to back, but like I'm like very hyper fixated and like type A personality, and I felt like just knowing, okay, if I do 20 breaths, I can breathe again, then we'll be fine. Natalie got there around
she was, well,
like
I think
3:34.
I went down to let her in. I basically like, and then we could hear you from upstairs. And I was like, I think we're pretty far along, but I obviously have no idea. So let her in, helped her with her stuff, and then I sprinted upstairs to go back to you. And then she came in, and she saw you. I think you were in the bathroom at this point. And then she looked at you, and then she turned to look back at your mom and me, and she's just like, I'm not leaving. We're like, okay, and that's when they hit me. I'm like, okay, we're a lot further along than I thought. Yeah,
and this is when my surges, contractions, whatever you call them, are lasting like, they're every 3 minutes, and they're lasting about like 30 seconds. And then usually like the second part was always more intense. It was like one 30-second one, and like a second one that was like really intense. And when I spoke with Natalie and we like debriefed about all of this, something that I thought was like really cool that she commented on was like, I instinctively was like rocking back and forth and kind of like letting my head hang, and like my eyes, I also think, were closed from like the beginning of labor until like Juniper was here.
Yes.
Like I would like open my eyes for a second, but I like really was like in my own world. And so I just like intuitively was like rocking my body, going with like each surge that like honestly felt like a wave. And like when we were practicing all of the hypnobirthing stuff and working with Natalie, like me envisioning like the waves and like the beach. My parents live on a beach at home, and like I had this like very clear image of like a very happy place that I was just like in from the moment of like losing the mucus plug up until like the end. I know that like at this point she had suggested to get into the bath, but like I was really hot.
You didn't want to?
No, I did not. And like we had washcloths on my neck, which was really nice.
Enter the fan.
The fan.
There was this like portable fan that we had like little...
It's like a stroller fan.
Yeah, it had bendy arms, so you could kind of wrap it around anything, which where she was, like she didn't want to be not 2 feet away from this thing.
I was so hyper fixated on this fan.
So anywhere we went, we would just wrap it around something, so it's just constantly blowing on her face. That fan was the absolute MVP of this entire labor.
Yeah, like out of all the things, like the positive birth affirmation cards, the playlist, the comb, the... what else did we do? We did the essential oils, like everything.
Toss them all away. Just get yourself a small portable fan with wrappable arms.
I think at this point I like was having trouble just speaking through things, and I think I would just be like, fan.
Yeah, you just demanded the fan.
After I like calmed down a little bit and like they were intensifying, like Natalie did suggest to get into the tub, and like once I was in the tub it felt so nice. Like I had like a little like Skims bra and just like no bottoms on, got into the tub. Spud came like right on the bath mat, and he was sitting there like very concerned, being so good, and kind of Colin, Natalie, my mom would trade out with like who would be next to Spud, and then like I would be in the bathtub kind of just like facing them, and like the water felt so good, and I felt like this is like when I like even sunk deeper and like really started like leaving this planet. But then you guys were like, we had the birth bags packed for the most part, but we were using a lot of these tools like in our home, and the plan was like we wanted to stay at home till we got to about 7 centimeters. I wasn't doing cervical checks, but like Natalie, with having so much experience, like knows at what point we're like kind of around that and when to like call it to go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. So like there were a lot of things kind of throughout the house because everything kind of happened so quickly. So I think this is when you guys started like working on packing up the bags, and then one of them would kind of like stay in the bathroom with me and like rotate around. I do think you got a little bit of blood on your pants.
It did. And just a PSA, if you're gonna do OxyClean on blood, do it right away, which is great, but take your pants off first. Don't have them against your skin because...
Did you stain your skin?
No, I didn't stain it. It just OxyClean and skin aren't really the best mix. Because yeah, that burns a lot.
So I'm sorry you were in pain.
What? The blood... Sounds so lame to say.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was going through it too, guys.
On like 7 p.m, Natalie said like it's time to make the transfer to the birth center. And like granted, we were only 8 minutes away, and we live in a very small town, but like this was when I had like envisioned birth, like what I thought to be like the biggest challenge, and I was, boy was I wrong. But when I manifested this birth, I thought like, okay, if I can just get through this transfer like we're gonna be good. We have a Toyota Tacoma, and like getting in and out of that truck, especially postpartum right now, is like so hard. Love that truck, but like right now that car is not the family car. And so we decided that we would go in Natalie's car, me, Colin, and Natalie, and then my mom would take the truck to follow along with all of our bags. And this is when we had to figure out like how to get me downstairs, because we thought we would have more time to like time it with the contractions, but because they were just coming on like so strong and close together, like we had to get creative. So Natalie suggested I go from our room to Juniper's room, which the nursery is right next door, to take a few surges like on the floor. And this is when you were really helping with like counter pressure. The fan was obviously
there in
your hand. We were not leaving without the fan. And then we would make it downstairs, take a few. And I remember like, so like Natalie or you were like, do you want to put your shoes on? I'm like, no.
Yeah, no,
I did not
have slippers ready.
Yeah, I had this like labor gown from Freedom Mall that I was wearing, and then I had like a Skims bra underneath that was like really comfy. And so you put me in the front, and you drove Natalie's car, and Natalie was in the back. The fan was right up front.
Fan was up front with us. We couldn't figure out the music, so I was playing your birth playlist. I was holding the birth playlist while driving the car.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was fully coming from the car.
No. The hospital here has a nice like birthing, or like women's like birthing center.
It's like a doula-esque birthing center. Also, it's like 10 beds. We live in a town with 13,000 people.
Yeah, because like I think that those doors close at 6, and like
yeah, we had like just
7.
missed it,
so
we went through the emergency.
So we had to go into the emergency. We had to go through the emergency room, which did not help.
But when we were driving over there, like, I mean, my eyes were closed, but like looking back on the pictures, like the sun was setting.
Oh yeah.
It was like really like symbolic, I feel like.
Yeah.
As the transfer like anxiety that I had about it, like I felt like it went so well. And when we got there, I was greeted with like a wheelchair on arrival, which is part of my birth plan. But I think that like because of that, they thought I was like about to like push this baby out in the hallway. And so I was like raced through the hallway, and whoever was pushing me was like, no babies in the hallway. And they're like, can I do a cervical check? And I'm like, no.
That was right when we walked
like,
in. She
no.
was like ready. She was like ripping up your gown. I'm like, lady.
Yeah, she was like, can I do a cervical check? Like down? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, this is not part of the plan. And she's like, well, we just can't have babies in the hallway. So she's like sprinting. I'm like in like some video game, and I'm just like closing my eyes, like still trying to like picture my happy place. And honestly, like I was still able to like stay in it, which was really insane to me because I thought I wasn't.
We were trying to keep up, but she was just sprinting with you down the hallway. I mean, we were following, but very far behind.
And then so we got set up in the labor room, which is like a really nice room. There's like this huge birthing tub, and I think that's why like Natalie made the call like a little bit earlier than we had intended, because the tub was way bigger. Like our tub at home, like I couldn't fully submerge myself in it, and like there was nitrous oxide there as a pain relief option, and that I knew would be really helpful for me when things started getting more intense, and like they were getting more intense. And so just like breaking up the cycle and having a stronger level of pain relief was going to be really good. So I went straight into the tub. My mom set up like our birth room, which had like some battery operated candles, some twinkle lights, which was super nice. And then Colin helped me get into the tub, and like they set up a nitrous oxide. And like once I got into the tub, like everything went, like I have to imagine I was maybe 7 centimeters. I was in the tub from 7 centimeters to 9.5 centimeters. And like really just in my zone. The nitrous oxide was so nice for me because I had to like really focus on like breathing in, like slow exhales, which I just like sunk even deeper and deeper like into hypnosis. I feel like at this point I was not on this planet. And I wasn't like, I know this sounds insane, but like I wasn't really feeling pain at this point. Like I was feeling like I'm floating through water, and that I can like get through this, and like I knew I was gonna make it to the end. The nurses were really nice about just like giving me space.
The nurses were great.
Yeah, they were so great. And I knew this midwife, and like this is who I wanted to work with, and she was so great about just like bringing this like home birth element to the birth center. And like the lights were really low. When I first got into the tub, we did a non-stress test, which was like 30 minutes or so, and it was in the water, which was waterproof, which was super nice. So it like allowed me to like move around still, and like all of that.
Wireless monitors that are strapped.
Yeah, there was like one on my belly and kind of like one kind of lower to my uterus.
It measures contractions, and it measures the baby's heartbeat.
This part is just like so perfect to me, and exactly like what I had envisioned, and I'm like so proud of myself. Once I got to 9.5 centimeters, this is where like things start to go askew, and like I feel like this was act 1 that happened, and like we love act 1, we're so about act 1, and then act 2 is like where things like start to go a little bit complicated. Yeah, hard left turn. Okay, I need like notes here. I think around like 11 p.m. this is where Juniper was having like decelerations in her heartbeat.
On every contraction.
Yeah, like on every contraction. So
surge.
Like a contraction surge would come and her heartbeat would like start getting like pretty low. And this is like, I do not remember any of this. This is like all retold to me by our midwife and our doula in your side and my mom. But so from this point, like we were having to be put on continuous monitoring instead of intermediate, and that was like with the Doppler, just so they could understand like what was going on constantly. Miranda, the midwife, had recommended that I place an IV to get IV fluids to kind of
help cushion the contractions, so it wasn't, because basically what they were saying was that every contraction is pushing on the umbilical cord, which is slowing the baby's heart rate. And this also took a very long time for them to tell us, because they were following our birth plan like to the letter, which yours said like you don't
no intervention,
like no cervical checks, like no machines.
I had no IV.
The hospital fear and stuff like that. So like we wanted like least amount of like machinery possible, and like no doctor jargon and stuff like that. And then finally I like pulled one aside and like, what's going on? And that's when we found out, like, so whenever you would contract, it would push on the baby's it would push on the umbilical cord, and that started slowing the heart rate. So that's when like that was a spark of concern.
Yeah, and usually like that signals like the umbilical cord might be wrapped around her neck, but like they don't know unless they like stick their hand all the way up there, or like we do some sort of interventions. And so that's when
we intervened.
Yeah, that's when intervention started. So when I got out of the tub, the first thing that we did was a cervical check, and I was 9.5 centimeters. And like even in this, like I was still like in my zone. Like I was out of the tub, but like my eyes were still closed. I was literally like laying on the floor and had like 6 people around me. And the first thing that they asked was like to put an IV in me to get fluids to help with like the cushioning of everything.
We had an IV, they gave you a regular IV, but they also put an IV vaginally going.
Dual IVs going, which I like kept my eyes closed. And like Juniper did start like responding really well to this.
It did help, because then the contractions started, because we had the actual like live monitoring going. So when the contractions did start, the heart rate just stayed the same. So we're like, okay, this is working.
Yeah, and so then at this point, like she's doing well for a little bit, but then we can see that she's distressed again. And so babies can only be distressed for like so long. And so this is where our midwife Miranda was like, oh, I think it's time to start pushing, because like we don't want to put so much stress on the baby, and they can only endure so much. So when she suggested we started pushing, like, or I started pushing, I was told that like you would feel like you have to push, and like it's very obvious, and would feel like a relief to push. And I like never felt that. And I was just like I've never done this before. So I'm just like going with what I'm told, and we tried like every different kind of pushing position. We did sideline, using like the push bar.
Yeah,
there was like a squat bar.
Yeah, you were saying your body never gave you the signal to...
Yeah, and I'm just trying to like push in a way, like at first I'm trying on my own, which was like I didn't want any guided pushing, which was part of my birth plan. And then Miranda stepped in and was like, I know you don't want guided pushing, but like we need to like get things accelerated. Like, would you be open to coach pushing?
The heart rate started becoming a concern again. So that's when,
and I said like yes to everything. Like at this point I was like open to anything. They were relaying it in the best way that they could. I'm trying to keep my head space, and I'm like not fighting back. I'm just like taking the medical provider's suggestions, because like I do really trust her. And like at this point, like this is above my pay grade. I just like something starts going wrong, because we're doing all these pushing positions and we reach 4 hours of pushing.
It doesn't feel like a long time, because when they said it had been 4 hours, it's like, whoa.
Where like we know that like the OP position is like really becoming a problem. So she's not like descending into the birth now, she's stuck in my pelvis. And that's partly why these surges and things aren't like normal, and they're irregular, and like why all of this is not working, because basically she's facing up, and like to face down is how you're gonna get through your 10 centimeters that you've dilated. And like when you're faced up like this, like you're almost like 13 centimeters, and like it's not working. And like she's just getting her head like rammed into my pelvis, basically. 4 hours of pushing. This is like when Miranda kind of came in.
She presented us with 3 options. We could try to push for another hour, which all of us in the room, and then Natalia's obviously in her zone, we're all kind of looking at each other, just kind of like, no. And then, or epidurals to see if they could get the baby in a different position or make it basically not OP or not sunny side up, to basically kind of turn it.
So she would actually, when our midwife would like reach up there and turn it, but like that's not really an option for unmedicated labors because it's like beyond painful.
Yeah.
And also they don't know if they're going to be able to actually do that.
Yeah, like it's not a guarantee or anything like that. And then the third one was a C-section.
And that's like what all signs pointed back to. Like any of the other 2 options were going to result in a C-section.
Yeah, well, yeah, we found that out after the fact. But like, we all thought, because based off how just determined she was for this birth, and like not having an epidural and not wanting this the natural way, we all thought she was going to want to push for another hour. So we were all kind of preparing to kind of have or basically put up somewhat of a discussion / argument to say like, I think you should do a C-section. But right when Miranda said, or a C-section, you just came out of your trance and just yelled, let's do a C-section. So all of us just kind of were just like,
and like at that moment, like everything, I snapped out of like every sort of like pain barrier and like protective, like peaceful state. And like everything set in, like everything that I had blocked out. And I really was like, even with pushing, like it was like, I guess painful in some way, but I was just like so determined and like not feeling anything. And then like right then when I said the word C-section, like everything started flooding in, and like I felt like these surges were like splitting my body in half. Like it was getting really, really bad. And I also thought when I said C-section, like, okay, that was gonna be it, and I was gonna be wheeled into the next room and like on we go, and like this is the phase 2 of our labor. But because we're in such a small hospital, like I remember saying C-section, they're like putting paperwork in front of my face to sign, and I'm just like, it's like so disorienting. We signed the paperwork, and
they had to call the on-call doctors in too, because it's a small hospital, it's a small town, so like there wasn't someone like there like waiting.
Yeah, they had to call the doctor that could do this.
We had to wait for the doctor.
They had to call the anesthesiologist that could do this. There was like a bunch of red tape with like the pain medication, because I still like, I'm unmedicated at this point. And so the pharmacy had a bunch of red tape. They couldn't get any pain meds or like an anti-anxiety to go into this operating room before. And so I'm just like waiting there, like suffering through every contraction. And like at this point, like I was truly suffering. Like we're going on like 13 plus hours of labor. Like my body's exhausted. I just pushed for 4 hours. It was a lot. And so we filled out the paperwork. We would get rolled into the operating room, and like the team has to get caught up to speed on like what's going on. And so there's like 15 people in this operating room. I'm strapped down to the operating table, like literally strapped down and being held down, going through these contractions because I still don't have pain meds, while they like figure out and get situated. And I'm just like waiting for the anesthesiologist to put me out. And there was a conversation about like a spinal tap so I could be awake during this, or I could be under general anesthesia. And like at this point, I'm like, I need rest. Like I need to get out. I do not want to be under a spinal tap. I'm also terrified of needles. That's the whole reason I didn't want to do an epidural. So I'm not going to do an epidural like thing, just to be awake and through this like kind of trauma like even longer. And so finally they put me under, and I go through the C-section, and like this point I don't know what happens.
So because you elected to do general anesthesia rather than that spinal tap, becomes like a rush job. Like basically they have to get the baby out as quickly as possible, so the anesthesia doesn't go or enter like the baby's system. So she was wheeled in, and I was with our doula, and I had to sit outside of the waiting room. And then I kind of like put my head against the wall, and then I woke up to basically like a tap on my knee from the doula being like you're a dad, you're a dad, you're a dad. And I hear crying. All the emotions just started kicking in, and like I got my 5-minute nap. Like invite me into the operating room to see our baby. Turns out the baby was still sunny side up and had his umbilical cord wrapped around her neck twice. Everything like made sense after that.
She was not there. This was the only option for her to come out.
Yeah, there was no way. Like So thank God you didn't push for another hour, because that probably would not have been healthy. And then an epidural just would have just prolonged the inevitable.
Yeah, we needed to get her out. And so then you were invited into the operating room to see her?
Yeah, I get to see her, and then I was able to go, like, walk over and looking at this gorgeous little girl.
And she's so cute.
And it was incredible, and so I'm getting, like, probably, like, the highest high you'll probably ever feel in your entire life. And then I made the mistake of, like, turning around and looking, and then I see you still halfway through the operation. So like going from like the highest high to the lowest low, and then on like 5 minutes of sleep, and having this doctor just tell me like all this medical jargon, and then like finding out that her blood sugar is like kind of low. So there's like these things that we need to do like within this next 24-hour stretch, and I'm trying to like just comprehend it all. Well, her little hand grabbed my giant finger, and that was adorable. You were they were finishing you up.
I'm still like fully knocked out at this point.
Yeah. Yep. I left, and then they did like a final check on the baby. They pushed the baby out, and then I followed it into our room. You weren't going to be...
Yeah, they put Juniper on your chest, you did skin to skin.
Yeah, but you were still being operated on for like the next 20 minutes, and then you're going to be in post-op for the next hour. So they're like, you need to... like here, so like we did like so I was doing skin to skin, it was great. And then they came in again and reminded me about the whole like low blood sugar thing. So they're offering like we have donor milk, like basically what needed to happen, like the blood sugar was low. There's a certain number that she had to test above based off her like size, and we were testing incredibly below, or she was testing incredibly below that number. So we just need to get calories and like basically calories into her, so like she would start testing above. Luckily, we had been harvesting colostrum. I
harvested about 50 milliliters of
colostrum.
Like
week 36?
Yeah, week 36. It was a really good thing that we did. We had brought some to the hospital just in case of an emergency. So
and luckily,
harvest colostrum. Please.
Yes, harvest colostrum.
So we had that.
We had that, and first test she was above. They had to do it every 3 hours for the 24-hour period. I was still recovering. They were dealing with all the colostrum stuff. Juniper was nice and healthy. And then I got wheeled into post-op. And then I came out like waking up and like seeing Juniper, but like super out of it. Like I remember it kind of. And then as I'm recovering, I'm on like fentanyl and all these like other drugs to like help me recover. But I'm still feeling like so much pain in like my abdomen. And so that's when I started telling the doctors like something's wrong, I think something's off. And it turns out I'm like hemorrhaging. And so once again they had to call in like 10 to 15 different doctors. I'm like coming out of anesthesia. There's all these people around the room. I'm like ash at this point. Yeah, you weren't coherent at all.
My heart rate was rising, my blood pressure was dropping. All these like bells and whistles are going off of like all the machines I'm hooked up to. I have all these like doctors talking about what's the best form of attack because I'm hemorrhaging and they need to go back in there and basically like get the blood loss that's hemorrhaging and stop it. So they put me back under general anesthesia and they stopped the hemorrhaging and get all of the blood loss out, and I actually lost over half of my blood count.
3 liters.
3 liters, to which I had 3 blood transfusions to follow over the course of the next day. So we get back from the second surgery, and then we proceed to we spent 3 nights in the hospital. The first 2 nights, Colin and my mom spent the night with me. There was a couch, and my mom slept on like this recliner chair, and I'm just like in and out of it. Juniper is like doing so good. I'm just like really, really struggling because I've endured so much and so much blood loss that like I am just like not really there. And I think that was like really hard for like Colin and my mom and Natalie, our doula, to see, just because like I was deteriorating like so quickly and it became like a very like urgent medical situation.
Mm-hmm. It was scary. So.
Yeah, this is the part that's like hard for us to talk about still. But after all of this was said and done, it was really about like focusing on the recovery. The nurses were so great. I like definitely could not do anything on my own, but like each day got a little bit better. We had Juniper's godparents visit us in the hospital, but even that to me was a blur. And this was all, so she was born on Wednesday morning, and by Friday morning they were talking about keeping me one more night because they needed my labs to look a certain way. And I just like could not be in the hospital anymore. I like needed to get home. I was so ready, even though I was in pain. Like I just wanted to recover at home. And so I made a deal with my nurses that if my labs looked good, and I went for a few walks, and if I was open to some fundal massages, which is really painful, where they like massage your uterus, and like after everything I've endured, like 3 blood transfusions, a C-section, a full labor that was unmedicated and pushing for 4 hours. Like, I don't want somebody pushing on my abdomen, but I knew it would get me out sooner. So I did it, and they discharged me a day earlier. We went home Friday afternoon. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot. But Juniper is so healthy. She's already back up to her birth weight. She's doing so good, and like, I would do it all again if it meant that I would have her here. But that is our story of Juniper. I can't believe she's still sleeping.
It's all worth it.
Yes, it is all worth it. And this is Juniper Rae Daly's birth story.